have a whole set of those. But that's...
What are you doing?
Oh, he's going? You're giving me the bigger straw? Oh, there you go. I don't get to use my fancy aluminum one.
He wants, this is a safety for yours. So if you jump over yours.
Right. This is, yeah, there you go. Yeah, no, that's good. That's
well,
that's
is not to that, so you can turn it that way.
Oh, nice. Nice.
It's a double.
It's a double.
There's nothing more practical when you get into keeping your fancy figure.
That's right. You got it. So now we're almost there. We just got that last little bit. This was a completely gnarly piece of wood. This had this in it. This is an offcut of this somewhere.
I like that. I like the nose in it.
Well, I mean, it's been sitting in my shop, and I thought, oh, well, maybe if I need a little piece of walnut for something one day, I'll use it.
I have several like that.
Yeah, no, I won't. So I'm using it today, though.
So we're here with a minimalist woodworker,
well, and then
he's building handles for a Moxon vise. The Moxon vise parts were made by Matt Mattingly, another member here, or person here, and so you start with that piece. And then each one of these three prongs here will get a wooden handle on them and epoxied on.
Oh, Jack wants to do the timeout rally.
Oh, okay, cool.
But what's the timeout rally? All right, so.
I don't know, he's sitting there like a judge with it.
So the minimalist woodworker. And we're taking a break. We're gonna go outside. We're live on YouTube right now.
Awesome. Hey, YouTube.
Yeah, benchcraft. No, mine cost me, I don't know, $10.
Okay, if you haven't been to the Wadkin Temple before, I'm the high priest. I'm going to give you my sermon. My sermon is the 10 Commandments. Commandment 1 is, don't let me catch you with a beer on any of my cast iron. That's pretty much the only important one. You can covet other people's wives. I don't really care about that. Okay, but what this festival is about is a celebration of quality in every aspect. For me, it's machines. They help me do what I want to do. And it's also about telling people about people that understand what quality is. And I want you all, because you came here, to tell people about me, about all of the other demonstrators that are here sharing that same philosophy. That we want to let people know that it's not about buying quality, it's about experiencing it. And you need to experience that by knowing who's doing it. Very few are left. We need to support them. And this mechanism of a show here is about sharing that philosophy. It generally doesn't cost more. My philosophy is I will never build you anything you can afford. If you can't afford it, I'm not building it. So I'm going to introduce you to Karen McBride. She's the master of ceremonies and the queen of the Wadkin Temple here. You'll notice that we as staff are original junkies. And the junkie is the clergy here. They believe in this philosophy. And I have a very special man here this year, and he's the very thin, slender person there dodging the view, Vic Teslin, who is sequestering a hand tool rally here. A rally is under the same pretenses of quality, that we are here to support voices like his, passion like his, and it's very addictive. This man's very addictive. You'll find the blacksmith person over here very addictive. Get to talk to them. They love talking about what they do. not shut up. And I've only given them 3 hours to speak. So there is time later. Engage them. They love it. That's what they're here for. I want you to spread the word that this is Mecca. Okay? You come back every year, and this is where you bow down to the holy temple of woodworking. Okay? And you let people know that we are about quality. We are going to show you, teach you, do whatever it is. Experience it, enjoy it. Thank you for coming.
Hey, Jack. We've moved up to a proper pulpit here. Every year there's something new. Yeah, as Jack said, my name's Karen McBride. I'm not going to be saying too much today, at least not behind the pulpit, but I'm just going to lay the groundwork for you for the afternoon. Louder. Okay. Better?
Yep. Some of us are hard of hearing.
Yeah, I know.
What?
Move up to the front, Matt. I thought I had a loud voice. We do have a microphone, so some of the speakers will be using the microphone. We do have lunch is being served right now. We make you pay for your lunch, but if you hang into the end of the day, we give you a free barbecue. And that's courtesy of the OWA, who we'd like to thank for their generous donation. We combine with them for their annual summer picnic. So there'll be OWA members here too wandering around. That'll happen tonight, roughly 5 or 6 o'clock. We'll be serving the barbecue. Between now and then, we'll be running demonstrations, and we go with the carnival concept here. So I have a schedule here. We're already off schedule, but I'll put that on the lectern. You can have a look. People are going to start at different times. Vic's Maverick, he's already started, and completely ignoring the schedule, which he never saw in the first place, so that's the way we work around here. And so anyway, what you're going to have to do is just wander around the key areas as, what's your name? Jack. Jack said, in here. I always forget that guy's name. It doesn't make enough of an impression on me. Vic is going to be in here. I'm going to be the red tent we're going to put up. Vic's doing the mocks and vice. He's going to be making a mocks and vice. And that's courtesy of Deaf Matt at the back, who makes the, he heard that, he makes the hardware for the mocks and vices. So if you're interested in speaking to somebody about buying the hardware kit, you can speak to Matt, a fabulous machinist. That's what Vic's going to be doing in there. I'm going to be talking about how to get rust off machinery, because I thought what we wanted to do was demystify things for the new people and show them how easy it was to take a lumpy piece of rust and turn it into something beautiful and shiny, so that you can take that universal machine home in the back of your head and not be afraid.
You can get that for 45 bucks.
So don't be shy. And we're, so I'm going to be talking about
$50 in money would get it.
Yeah.
already making beautiful
Well, Art was saying it's 42 bucks in scrap metal, right? I heard
show
that.
you what he starts with for wood, or for metal, and what he ends up with. And it's a fabulous transition. So he's also establishing himself in a very permanent way on the site. So we'll be seeing a lot of him. And I know Jack is very excited about having a resident blacksmith on the site. So if you need any of that kind of work done, as a furniture maker, I'm really excited that I have somebody that can make me hardware like that. So if you're looking for that kind of work, Nick's your man, and you'll always be able to find him here. We're going to have Mark Hanbury right here. We brought him all the way from England. You could tell from his accent. Only we did that, I don't know, how many, 30, 40 years ago? Sorry?
It's increment, not really.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. And anyway, he's going to be here talking about joinery. You won't want to miss that.
Sorry, I'm hand holding this.
And that's going to happen in here. He's going to have the microphone. So yeah, you won't be able to miss the sound of Mark. There's one porta potty that's hidden kind of behind the car over there. So we'll ask you to use that. The women can speak to me. We got a special spot for women. Don't have to use the porta potty. There's a few of us. So.
Which bush is it behind?
Yeah. I'll tell you. And then of course the barbecue area here for hot dogs right now, and then later tonight that's where the festivities is going to happen. If you stay long enough, which most people do, then we get into the fire pit activities, and this is probably for Matt. It's what did you call it? A night of music for the hearing impaired. That's what Jack said. And I think it's because they're the ones that enjoy it the most.
This is the blacksmith shop. They're doing a demo.
Oh my god. Okay, so that's what your ear protectors are for. See? Next to the sink. Jack, is there anything else I forgot? Okay, that's right. Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah, before dinner we'll auction off some stuff, and it's even a surprise to us what we're auctioning.
Yeah.
So
That's always good.
it's always good. There's always
Surprises are
something.
good.
50-50 tickets. So Adair's going to be wandering around with 50-50 tickets. I think they're $2 a ticket and $10 for an arm length. And we've got some Lee Valley gift certificates for the 50-50 draw. So yeah, and I should be remembering to thank Lee Valley as our sponsor as well for today. So that's it. Have a great time. If you're during the day you need any kind of information, you'll be able to pick us out from 1,000. You can't hear me, but you can see me from 1,000 miles away in these lime green shirts, safety green shirts. So find somebody if you have any questions. Otherwise, have a great time, and we'll see you at dinner.
Can I go back to work now?
Go get in there, Rick. Get going.
Yeah, I guess we will. Yeah, now that Mark can leave. We'll get in here.
This is a mortiser. It's got a regular mortise, and it also does chain mortising. Here's a Wadkin PK table saw that Jack restored. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And then here's a big old wood lathe, and it's a pattern maker's lathe. So you have a tool post like you do on a metal lathe. And I think it'll do 8 feet. Grinder. A work in progress looks like. Bandsaw. Kilting bandsaw. A little mini jig borer he uses. Got an end mill in there. Even though he does wood, he pimps up his machines, and so he's, you know, there you go. He's got a piece of brass in there. Who knows what he's doing with it? But stuff like that ends up as components of his other machines. So he'll pimp something up with a bunch of brass that wasn't originally on the machine. So here's another bandsaw. This one I believe is a Wadkin also. That's why this is the Wadkin Temple. So we're gonna go back live with Vic, the minimalist woodworker, who's making a Moxon vise. Well, making the handles for a Moxon vise.
Now, of course, this is a little bit smaller. This is like a number 3 size plane. So Stanley kind of came up with the naming nomenclature that we use today. This is about a number 3 size. And so now that I don't have to worry about this having any undulations or any unflatness, now I can use this. This is basically what was replaced by a Festool ETS 150. Okay, this is a random orbital sander, except there's no dust. There's just shavings. So it's the same drill. I'm going to set it up the exact same way. If you can set one plane up, you can set all the planes up. They basically adjust the same way. So I dial this back, or sorry, I dial it forward so that the blade is peeking out. And then I take a look to see if it's centered in the mouth. If it's not, again, I just give a light tap to the adjuster. Don't worry about wrecking the adjuster, okay? Unless you grab something like this, right, and start wailing on it, you don't have to worry about it. A light tap with a brass hammer, a small brass hammer, is not going to harm this adjuster. And you always move your adjuster in the direction that the plane's cutting high. It sounds backwards, but it's like a tiller steer boat. You know, if you want to go right, you got to push left, okay? Same idea with this. Now, with a wooden plane, it's different because you don't have an adjuster in some cases, so then you're going to tap right onto the blade, and then it's self-explanatory how all that works, okay? Once yep.
Excuse me, is there times when you would tap the blade as compared to the adjuster?
If I have an adjuster, I always tap the adjuster.
Okay.
Yeah. The problem is, Marty, is that sometimes you're not left with much to tap on these planes, right? If you were to try to get that hammer in there, you don't have much to have that come in contact with. Right? So I just adjust like this.
Just tap the knob.
And like that. Okay? Again, use a brass hammer. Okay? Don't use a steel hammer. Well, you can use a steel hammer. And the folks at Lee Valley will happily sell you a new adjuster. Right? But the goal is to not wreck your stuff. And a new hammer. That's right. So now, I'm just going to do the same trick. All I'm doing is, instead of, there's all kinds of information available on the Intergoogles about how to set the plane up so it's cutting, and some of it involves using your eye. I can't set a plane by eye to 1/2 of an inch. Can anybody here do that? Maybe John Wilson. Not even John Wilson? There you go, by tweaking it. So what I do is I make it so it's not cutting at all. And then I'm just going to move it back and forth on this timber, and I'm going to slowly start to adjust the blade forward. Clockwise is forward, counterclockwise is back. Unless you're using a sergeant plane, then it's backwards. Right? But we won't talk about that. So now you can see I'm just starting to cut. And I'm not going to get much out of this because I've got this corrugated surface that I made with this toothing blade, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the mouth up. I was talking earlier, there's ways to prevent tear out. One of them is a sharp blade. If you don't have a sharp blade, you can't do any of this. Jack will also tell you that if you don't have a sharp blade, you can't use this stuff either. Okay? If it's not sharp, it's just everything's going to be much harder to work. Sharp blade, an appropriate angle, right? Low angle for end grain, standard regular or higher angle for more difficult woods. And then you can also control tear out by bringing the mouth to a tighter opening. And what that does is it puts pressure right ahead of the cut, because the wood just wants to fracture where it's weakest along the grain lines. It's the way an axe works. That's why it's so easy to split wood, because you're introducing the cut and then it just splits where it wants to split, right? I want to control all that splitting, and that's how I do that, is by closing the mouth up, okay? So now I can just start to work this. You can hear this is taking very, very little shaving off, because I'm still taking off the corrugations that I put in with the toothing blade. So I'm going to dial it up just a little bit more. And some people like a big, heavy smoother. Some people like myself, I like a smaller one. Big, heavy smoother, that's a lot of steel to push around. Okay, so now I'm starting to get down to where I was at. Okay, and I'm doing the exact same thing as I did with the jack plane. I'm putting lots of pressure on the toe at the start of the cut so that the plane doesn't do this. And I'm putting lots of pressure on the tail so that I'm not doing this. Okay? If you're making barrel staves, ignore that advice. Okay? But I don't think any of us are making barrels. I like the stuff that comes out of barrels. But as a furniture maker, it's not the best thing in the world. So now I'm just dressing this up. And the nice thing about this is that when I'm finished taking these shavings, this wood is ready. It's done. I don't have to sand it. I don't have to treat it any other way. The only time you may have to sand it is if you're going to stain it. Okay, I'm not a big staining guy. If I want it brown, I make it out of walnut. If I want it red, I make it out of cherry. Okay? If I want it green, I paint it. right? So I'm not big on the stains, but this here, well, you'll be able to put finish on this no problem. So you can hear I've got tear out here, eh? You can hear it happening. It's because the grain is reversing here. So I might have to get a little fancy in a moment and do something crazy, like turn the board around. It is radical thinking, but sometimes you just have to think outside the box a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to flip that around. This is walnut I'm working with here. It's one of my favorite North American woods. So can you hear the difference when I'm planing here now? Before it kind of had like a sound. You can hear tear out, you can feel it. It makes you feel bad in your bathing suit area when you do it. Okay, but now, and so all I'm doing is I don't want to go, I gotta not plane here in this direction, so all I'm gonna do is I'm just kick the toe up a bit. And that prevents the blade then, and you don't get a hard stop. Okay, you don't want to take a shaving and then pull the plane up, because what you'll do is you'll end up with a little bit of a spot there that you're not going to be too happy with. The other thing that all of these planes have is camber. So the blade is crowned like this, okay, so that the corners aren't in the work. If the corners are in the work, everybody's had this experience. You get an old hand plane, you sharpen it really well, you know, like you've taken it to your belt sander, right? And then you go to try to use it, and the corners are digging into the wood, and then you end up with those shelves and all the little messes on there, and then you swear at the plane because it's the plane's fault, it's clearly not yours, and then you grab a sander, right? What we're doing here is by having that camber, and you don't need much. I'm going to use a machinist term now. It's called thousandths of an inch. So you only need a couple of thou worth of camber on the blade to prevent it from digging in. So when you're sharpening, you just put a little bit of pressure on one side, a little bit of pressure on the other side, and you'll create that. You don't have to go to the grinder and create it. You can, but your blade will look like this, right? And that's probably not what you're after unless you've got a scrub plane. But this is a scrub plane too. This is just as good as a scrub plane. I'll show you that later. So that's the key to success with a smoothing plane, with a bench plane, is that you have to have that camber. Now all bets are off when you're using a joinery plane, because the joinery plane is absolutely essential that you have the geometry that it's meant to have. If it doesn't have that geometry, you're going to get rabbets that are cut at an angle, you're going to get grooves that are kind of higher on one side and lower on the other, so you don't want that to happen. But for this kind of stuff, right, we're good to go.
These are the Knox and Vice handles that Matt makes. And we're making the handles for it.
Don't get any sweat on the wood.
Hey?
Don't get any sweat on
Oh, it's too late for that. It's too late for that.
Nick, you remember when at an OWA meeting a number of years ago,
Oh, I know this story.
we did
We're going to be welding some cast iron here, so Jack's going to be doing a demo. He's got his old Lincoln AC welder.
The reality is,
And get some stick on there and weld up some cast. So I'm going to walk around and see what's happening in the at the blacksmith shop. And Karen, who was talking earlier, is going to be showing how to remove rust. Let's see where we are with the hammer. If we're anywhere.
The forge handles, but I kept going from, I used to use that wood stove.
Look at Alex Steele, where he's at.
Yeah.
19 years old, he's been doing it professionally since he was 16. Yeah.
Actually, I
So
went
that's where they are on it so far.
That's where I made that with him. He's got
So
a
these
power.
guys are actually renting space off of Jack. They built their little blacksmith shop, and they're doing a demo today. But yeah, it's a real working shop. You feel the heat coming out of here too. Let's see if I can stand this up somewhere.
put it in.
I just did it right before that. Give her a quick run it for a little bit. Get that hammer bit on again.
You want that,
So they're making a claw hammer.
while I heat that up?
Any tools fall, do you have to do the drinking game or?
Oh, the Alex Steele drinking game? We would all be very drunk.
His partner in the business, Sam, at the new shop, they're selling tools.
Yeah. I've actually got a set of his burners.
Bigger things.
That'll be nice though.
Okay, put your hole. Alright, now flip it. One more. Flip it. And now over. Alright, back and forth.
This is some of the stuff they make. And we got a live demo going right now. We're gonna put this back.
Steel. Claw hammer. A claw hammer.
Carpenter's hammer. And a bottle opener, because they need a bottle opener.
And they're making us a bottle opener because we need one.
We started off with a piece of this. About a day long. Smashed it down, squared it up, punched the hole.
And then you start setting pullers in to start shaping the steel off in the different directions. It's a lot easier when you're doing it this way to work with somebody swinging a hammer. You can put your tools exactly where you want them to be, rather than trying to swing it like a hammer.
Yeah, you guys definitely need a back window. Get some airflow.
Yeah.
Pardon? That is alternating layers of steel. It starts out with a bunch of little tiny pieces of one's straight carbon steel, one's high nickel steel. Those get poured, welded together. Heat pressure.
Is that Damascus?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a sense, they're laminated together.
It is laminated together, yeah. And then by sort of kinking the layers, you can start to achieve patterns. And
Just by shaping it.
yeah,
and
well,
bending
right,
it.
so
and-
if you can imagine, where's my whiteboard? Where's my marker? So you start the square bar with a bunch of flat layers. Alright? And then what you do, kind of turn it up on an angle, and you hit this way. So you start to have your layers do that. Then, once it's sort of half squashed down into a hex, right? You turn it back this way, and you hit like so. So then you end up back with a square bar, but the layers
create these patterns.
look like this. Right? From there, you take your bar, my excellent drawing skills here, right? With its V pattern that way, you section it off.
So
like
you,
so.
you recut it.
Yeah, you cut it apart.
That's exactly, like I come from the veneer
Yeah.
laminated, and they have the reconstituted, stuff. Yeah.
They
That's
end
what I
up
was
with
curious about.
You end up with a bar that looks like this. You've got a V here, V here.
Centric, it really is.
What do you want?
All right. So then you've got essentially little W's. All right. You forge that bar down back to a square again, like this. that looks like zigzags. Okay? Take that bar, cut it, and then you can arrange those pieces.
Smash them all together, whatever way you want.
But how do
So that
you
you got
rejoin them together?
forge welding.
Forge welding? I know nothing about it.
Heat them up and smash them, right?
It's basically you heat it up to the point where it's just before it starts to burn. Anyways, then you end up with an explosion pattern. Just like,
Sorry, there.
just like that. So that's how you get there. Alright, so it ends up being that one of these is, this is a carbon layer, and that's nickel, so it's shiny. That's carbon, that's nickel, that's carbon. So when you get these stripes, the stripes are you get a dark stripe and a light stripe. Eventually, looks like that.
So we're at the GCRJF, the Great Canadian Rust Junkie Fest. And this is the 5th year. We do this every year, second weekend in July, and we have demonstrations, people doing things. So this time we have a blacksmith actually on site. This is all held by Jack English Machines, the high priest of the Wadkin Temple, and we have the Wadkin Temple because it's full of Wadkin tools. So the blacksmiths are making 2 things. One, a hammerhead, and second, a bottle opener because we couldn't find one. So an impromptu build. So I'm going to come back to this. We got some other work going on. We're going to have a few other things going on and see if we can catch some tools here. We actually have a demo here.
This is not necessarily ultimate joint. I like to mess around with the proportions a little bit. The best way to do that would be to do one of these and stress test it and break it. You want to know where the limits are and stuff. You've got to go past. So if you took this and you broke it, and see where it breaks, and then you increase that. So maybe it would be better to build these a bit thicker on the bottom and thinner at the top. You can play around with the proportions a fair bit on this stuff. And maybe you can chamfer this on 45 on the top.
Mark Henneberry talking about wood joinery.
So you have a 45 on the top here, and a 45 on the top here. It's kind of fun when you get playing with it. This joint does not have a sharp edge on here, although it looks like it. Theoretically, if this was a piece on its own and you stressed it back here, it would start to split here. Does that make sense? That would be where the focal point is split. Inside here, this is chamfered, and this is chamfered. So that I've got, again, 2 pieces that are pushing together against it like that. So that's what I enjoy doing. I think it's fascinating. There's a lot of stuff you can do. It's all pretty simple stuff. The big stuff is, the big problem all the time is us and what we see. And like I had a workshop for 30 years, and you have people come in and chit-chat to you all the time, and you find out that people have preconceived ideas in their head when they're talking to you, and if you don't fit them, you're crossed up. You don't actually look and analyse what you're doing. We all have ideas of what we want to see and what we expect to see. One guy came in the shop once and asked to speak to the skipper. I was 20 years old. He was looking for somebody who was 60, my age. Thought he was the boss. Where's the skipper? I said, I'm the skipper. Just little things like that, and you realise that somebody already had a picture of what they were expecting to see in the woodworking shop, which is kind of humorous. Another guy came in once and wanted me to build some end tables for him. And he told me he'd taken, most customers don't take woodworking courses. They just come in and want something they've seen. But this guy told me he'd taken a course at Algonquin College and knew quite a lot about woodworking. I thought, great, I got somebody that knows woodworking that I can talk to. So I spent an hour showing him around the shop, showing the machines and how I tuned them up and how they worked. And at the end of it, he said, oh yeah, I never took the machinery course. He said, I didn't see the point. I took the hand tool course. What's the point? He said, didn't see the point doing the machine course. They do all the work for you. And I just wasted a total hour talking to somebody whose mind was totally closed. If I'd showed him my hand plane and my chisels, it would have been great. In fact, I showed him the machinery, and then I was crossed off his list from the get-go.
And speaking of machinery, here's a 24-inch Watkin
probably the most interesting
joiner.
thing you gotta figure out is what you've
This thing
already
cranks
got in
up.
your
It's
head before you get started.
it's got a lot going for it. Sorry. You were just talking about machinery, so I figured I'd take a couple of shots of the machinery.
Yeah. So no, I use hand tools. I use machine tools a lot. I've done hand cut joints. I do most of the joinery here is done with like the dovetail joints, and these are all done with router jigs. There's always been this kind of...
Go back to the blacksmith. See where they're at.
Well, not fun. Oh, for the bottle opener. Yeah. I know that works. Here, you want the hold?
An impromptu bottle opener.
Not right now.
No. We've been taking some video during the day, but it's kind of hard to work. And no. Hi. Nice to meet you too.
I think we'll sign off now.
Well, let's be honest. You injured.